Now turn to Section 3. You will hear a student called Russ consulting his tutor about a presentation he is preparing on nanotechnology, the study of materials on an extremely small scale. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Come in, Russ.
Thank you.
Now, you wanted to consult me about your class presentation on nanotechnology. You're due to give it next week, aren't you?
That's right, and I'm really struggling. I chose the topic because I didn't know much about it and wanted to learn more, but now I've read so much about it, in a way there's too much to say. I could talk for much longer than the 20 minutes I've been allocated. Should I assume the other students don't know much and give them a kind of general introduction, or should I try and make them share my fascination with a particular aspect?
You could do either, but you'll need to have it clear in your own mind.
Then I think I'll give an overview.
OK. Now, one way of approaching this is to work through developments in chronological order. On the other hand, you could talk about the numerous ways that nanotechnology is being applied.
You mean things like thin films on camera displays to make them water repellent and additives to make motorcycle helmets stronger and lighter?
Exactly. Or another way would be to focus on its impact in one particular area, say medicine or space exploration.
That would make it easier to focus. Perhaps I should do that.
I think that would be a good idea.
Right. How important is it to include slides in the presentation?
They aren't essential by any means, and there's a danger of tailoring what you say to fit whatever slides you can find. While it can be good to include slides, you could end up spending too long looking for suitable ones. You might find it better to leave them out.
I see. Another thing I was wondering about was how to start. I know presentations often begin with, first I'm going to talk about this, and then I'll talk about that. But I thought about asking the audience what they know about nanotechnology.
That would be fine if you had an hour or two for the presentation, but you might find that you can't do anything with the answers you get, and it simply eats into the short time that's available.
So maybe I should mention a particular way that nanotechnology is used to focus people's attention.
That sounds sensible.
What do you think I should do next? I really have to plan the presentation today and tomorrow.
Well, initially, I think you should ignore all the notes you've made, take a small piece of paper and write a single short sentence that ties together the whole presentation. It can be something as simple as, nanotechnology is already improving our lives. Then start planning the content around that. You can always modify that sentence later if you need to.
OK.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
OK, now let's think about actually giving the presentation. You've only given one before, if I remember correctly, about an experiment you'd been involved in.
That's right. It was pretty rubbish.
Let's say it was better in some respects than in others. With regard to the structure, I felt that you ended rather abruptly, without rounding it off. Be careful not to do that in next week's presentation.
OK.
And you made very little eye contact with the audience because you were looking down at your notes most of the time. You need to be looking at the audience and only occasionally glancing at your notes. Your body language was a little odd. Every time you showed a slide, you turned your back on the audience so you could look at it. You should have been looking at your laptop. And you kept scratching your head, so I found myself wondering when you were next going to do that, instead of listening to what you were saying.
Oh dear. What did you think of the language? I knew that not everyone was familiar with the subject, so I tried to make it as simple as I could.
Yes, that came across. You used a few words that are specific to the field, but you always explained what they meant, so the audience wouldn't have had any difficulty understanding. I must say, the handouts you prepared were well thought out. They were a good summary of your presentation, which people would have been able to refer to later on, so well done on that.
Thank you.
Well, I hope that helps you with next week's presentation.
Yes, it will. Thanks a lot.
I'll look forward to seeing a big improvement then.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now this is part 3 of the test, and we again have multiple choice questions, and this has been the trend in many of the recent papers as well, that section 3 or part 3 is multiple choice questions, and these again can be challenging for students because the information is now academic, it's kind of technical as well, and you have a lot of information to explore, so it's easier to lose track, and it can be sometimes difficult to get hold of the correct answer that you need to look out for. But exercises like these can really help you, and I hope this one is useful for you as well. So this one is about planning a presentation on nanotechnology, and it begins by Russ walking in to have a talk with his tutor, and she says that you have a presentation due next week. How is it going? And Russ says that he is finding it difficult. He first thought that he hasn't had enough information, but now he has just studied so much on the topic that he is finding it difficult to um, keep it limited to just 20 minutes he can also talk more and more on the topic. So given that his presentation is next week and he has lots of information about it at the moment, it doesn't look like he is running short of time for preparation, not at all. And he says that he can very nicely talk for more than 20 minutes. So he definitely has more knowledge. So there is no lack of knowledge at all. So A and C are not going to be our options. He says that he wants to know if to other students he should just present a general overview, or should he focus on sharing his fascination with everyone about whatever he has studied. So that's the part he is finding difficulty with. He doesn't really know what he should be aiming for. Should it be a general thing, or should it be at the same enthusiastic level? And he should share fascination with like one aspect of nanotechnology that he has found to be the most fascinating for himself. Then they say that question number 22, Russ and his tutor agree that his approach in the presentation will be. Now in questions when they say that 2 people have to agree or 3 have to agree, be extra careful, because you might notice that person A might say B and C as possible options, and then they both might also talk about something, let's say about C, and then at the end one of the two might say that I think A is good, and the other one just quickly agrees with them. So the aspect is something that both of them agree on. So now the tutor says that there are two ways in which you can approach this. One is to follow the chronological order of nanotechnology, or the other one is that you can talk about how it is used in different applications, to which Russ says, yeah, that you mean how they are used in thin films, in um, digital cameras, or how they are used in helmets that bikers wear. So there are different range of applications of nanotechnology. They talk about B and they talk about C. And then the tutor says something else that you can also do is you can just focus on, or you can just concentrate on one particular field, one specific field. One particular field means that there is just one special area that they can focus on. And I think this person says that I think it was something to do with medicine or space exploration. So, and then Russ says that would be a good idea, and I think I'll go ahead with that. The tutor says, yes, I think so too. So 22, A is the correct answer. And then question number 23, Russ says, what should I do in terms of slides? And the tutor advises, recommends, or suggests. It all means the same thing. The tutor says that they are not essential, so it's not something important for us to include. And the point she makes is that you might only want to talk about the things you find on slides. So your topic might change, and you would just try to fit in the information to what kind of slides you have found. So tutor is not actually recommending A at all. She is actually against it. That she doesn't want him to do something like this. And she says that the other problem that you can have with slides is that you might spend too much time trying to look for slides which illustrate the points you want to make. So she says at the end that you would find it more useful, you'll find it much better that you just, don't consider slides altogether. So our correct answer is C. For question number For question number 24, they say that the question says they both agree that the best way for Russ to start his presentation is, so they're looking for the best way. And Russ says that, most presentations start with, first I'll do this and then I'll do that. So it doesn't sound like he wants to follow that. And this isn't something they agree on as well. So C is out of the number of choices. And then they say that should I ask questions from the audience to encourage them to be a part of it. And the tutor says that this can be good if you have 1 or 2 hours to do this presentation, but if you are to do it now, you can't really do something with the answers, and it is only going to take more time within the limited time range that you already have. So you can't really do much. You don't encourage them to talk. Then Russ says tutor says that you can give them one particular example. You can just give them one, you can give them information about something specific in the way nanotechnology is used. So giving information on something specific on its use means an example. And then Russ says that would be a good idea, it is good. So they both agree on C, which is to give an example. In the last question 25, they say, what does the tutor advise Russ to do next while preparing his presentation? So she begins by saying that first of all, ignore all the notes you have made. Ignoring the notes is not the same as reading the notes, so B is out. And then she says that all you have to do is take a piece of paper and write a short sentence on the main point of what he is going to cover. Initially, this is what you need to do. So summarizing everything means that you are shortening things up. You are taking notes in a very precise, in a very short manner. So having a short sentence means that summarize the information, and then you can develop your content around it. So once you do A, then you can maybe somehow make a list of the topics you want to cover. But first of all, your aim should be a one-liner, a summary. So the correct answer is A. So in this part of the section, we have classification questions where we're given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different options to choose from, and we have to choose the correct one and write it in front of the questions given from 26 to 30. Now, how I often solve these questions is that in the time that I am given, I first underline the key information that I see. So A is lacking a conclusion, useful in the future, not enough, sometimes distracting, showed originality, covered a wide range, and not too technical. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options here, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there are going to be 2 that we don't need. The speaker might confuse us by giving information of that sort. So let's see how it was. For the structure, the tutor mentions that it ended rather abruptly without rounding it off. Not rounding off something ending abruptly means that there is no appropriate ending, which in other words means that there is not enough. The conclusion wasn't appropriate, so the answer is A. Eye contact. You were looking down on the notes too much and not at the audience. You need to be looking at your audience more and very and not too often at your notes. You can just have a very quick look at it, but not for too long. Your eye contact should be with the audience, so your eye contact wasn't enough. So C is our answer there. Your body language. Well, she found that his body language was kind of weird because every time he changed the slide, he just turned his back to the audience and started looking at this whatever the slide was. And then she also says that he was scratching his head a lot. So instead of noticing what the information is about, the tutor said that she was more focused on when he does this next. So of course this was distracting and this shouldn't be done next time. So the answer is D, sometimes distracting. The choice of words. Russ says that, well, my choice of words okay because I thought that some information was or might be difficult for the audience to understand. And she says, well, it was enough. There were some specific words that you used, but you always explained what these meant, so they were not too difficult to understand. In other words, they were not too technical. It was all easy to understand. So choice of words, not too technical, is the right option. Handouts. The handouts you gave was a nice summary of everything you included in your presentation, and it would be something good for everyone to refer back to at a later date. Refer back to at a later date means that useful in the future. So B is our option there, and this is the end of our section 3.